I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a SnowWhite that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Fans have been eagerly searching for answers about the future of the Daily Wire's version of BrettCooper's show following her sudden departure. With no official announcement to confirm or deny its continuation, speculation has been running wild. However, recent remarks from Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring have only added fuel to the fire. Boring revealed that Brett was sent to acting lessons, a detail that has led many to believe the company had bigger plans for her beyond her YouTube success. Some speculate that she was being groomed for a scripted series, potentially tied to the Daily Wire's growing entertainment division. If true, this suggests that her departure may not have been as abrupt as it seemed, but rather part of a longer-term strategy. At the same time, fans of the Daily Wire's SnowWhite adaptation remain hopeful, even as controversy continues to swirl around Disney's upcoming remake. Many believe that the Daily Wire's version could serve as a direct counter to Disney's, especially given the backlash against RachelZegler's take on the iconic character. If the project is still moving forward, it could be a major shakeup in the entertainment industry. So, what's really happening behind the scenes? Was BrettCooper's departure part of a larger plan? And with Hollywood facing increasing pushback from audiences, could Disney's SnowWhite be in trouble before it even reaches theaters? One thing is clear. Fans are watching closely.
He got a source from the Daily Wire that gave him an inside scoop on the fact that the Daily Wire is pushing BrettCooper out.
Rumors are mostly true.
And it's not just that the Daily Wire is pushing out BrettCooper. It's actually that BrettCooper is under one of these contracts that has her basically tied to secrecy and silence, because now that they're terminating her contract, their arbitration clauses are coming into play. So she is in a secret court of arbitration, not a public court, where she is under NDA and can't say anything about it while they spin whatever narrative they want about it.
The mention of BrettCooper's acting lessons raises an intriguing question. Was the Daily Wire actively preparing her for a bigger role in scripted content? If so, it suggests they had long-term ambitions for her beyond just commentary. Now that she has departed, fans are left wondering whether the project will move forward with someone else, or if it has been shelved entirely. While no official confirmation has been given, the fact that the Daily Wire was investing in her development indicates they saw significant potential in her future as an entertainer. The real question now is whether the project is still in motion, and if so, who might step in to lead it. As more details emerge, it will be interesting to see how the Daily Wire addresses these speculations. Will the show continue without Brett, or was it always meant to be her project? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Guys, and welcome to the BrettCooper Show. I am so happy that you guys found me over here on this new channel. I am so excited to start this new chapter with you guys. We have been hard at work behind the scenes, literally boots on the ground, me and my 80-year-old neighborhood grandpa putting shiplap up on the ceilings to cover up my 90s popcorn ceilings that I thought you guys would not find aesthetically pleasing on a set. We're literally in a room at my house. We put this all together. Anyway, I am so excited to bring this new show to you and show you guys what we have been working on. So my goal with this new show is to foster understanding, to go deeper and extract substance in the stories and issues that matter most to us, the issues that impact us on a daily, personal.
Dropping the beloved dwarfs in favor of a diverse group of magical creatures, sparking even more backlash. Fans accused Disney of straying too far from the original film's charm and legacy, leaving many questioning whether the studio even understood what made SnowWhite a timeless classic in the first place. Amid this controversy, BrettCooper's emergence as a rival SnowWhite has completely shifted the conversation. Unlike Zegler, Cooper has embraced the traditional fairy tale, positioning herself as a direct contrast to Disney's modernized take. This stark difference in approach has only fueled the ongoing debate over Hollywood's treatment of classic stories and whether audiences still crave the timeless magic of original fairy tales. But Cooper's rise isn't without its own drama. Behind the scenes, questions remain about the future of the Daily Wire's SnowWhite project and whether Cooper's departure from the company signals a major shakeup. With no official confirmation on whether the production is still moving forward, speculation continues to swirl about who might take the lead role if Cooper is no longer involved. As the battle between these two SnowWhite interpretations intensifies, one thing is clear: this is shaping up to be the biggest fairy tale showdown in Hollywood. Will audiences reject Disney's revisionist approach in favor of a more faithful adaptation? And if Cooper is truly out, who will step in to challenge Zegler's controversial take? The future of SnowWhite has never been more uncertain. Evil Queen from the Daily Wire promised to honor the beloved fairy tale's classic themes, offering fans the traditional story they had been asking for. Cooper's version quickly gained traction, with many seeing it as a direct challenge to Disney's controversial remake. Critics accused Zegler of prioritizing an agenda over respecting the timeless legacy of SnowWhite, and her dismissive attitude only fueled the outrage. When asked about the original film's legacy, she rolled her eyes, joking that she had only watched it once and found it unrelatable. This response alienated many longtime Disney fans, who saw it as yet another example of Hollywood disregarding the stories that made their studio legendary. Disney initially attempted to defend Zegler, but the backlash became impossible to ignore. The controversy reached such heights that the studio made an unprecedented decision to delay SnowWhite's release to 2025, a move widely interpreted as a sign of trouble behind the scenes. Reports even surfaced suggesting that Disney was scrambling to rework the film, fearing yet another Marvel-style box office flop. And just as Disney's SnowWhite seemed to be unraveling, BrettCooper emerged with a rival adaptation that delivered exactly what fans had been demanding. Unlike Zegler's modernized, feminist reimagining, Cooper's film promised to stay true to the source material, bringing back the fairy tale magic that Disney appeared so eager to abandon. Now, with one version struggling to win over audiences and another gaining momentum, the battle for SnowWhite supremacy is officially underway. The question remains: will fans rally behind Disney's controversial vision, or will they embrace the nostalgic, faithful retelling that Hollywood refused to make? Evil Queen, produced by the Daily Wire, promised to embrace the classic fairy tale, complete with a traditional SnowWhite and an actual prince. Suddenly, RachelZegler wasn't the only SnowWhite in town, and her version was looking worse by comparison. Fans who had rejected Disney's modernized remake quickly rallied around BrettCooper's film, praising it as the real SnowWhite that audiences wanted. The contrast between the two films couldn't have been more glaring. While Zegler's version was mired in controversy, backlash, and delays, Cooper's take was being celebrated as a return to storytelling that actually respected its source material. Disney's attempt to reinvent the classic tale had alienated many fans, while the Daily Wire's adaptation promised to bring back the magic of the original. But just as Cooper's rise to the spotlight was solidifying behind the scenes, she was dealing with unexpected fallout with her former employer, the Daily Wire. The star, who had been one of the company's biggest breakout personalities, suddenly departed from the comments section, leaving fans shocked. Many speculated that the split was bitter, with rumors swirling about financial cuts or internal disagreements. Some believed that Cooper's more neutral stance on key political issues may have clashed with the Daily Wire's more outspoken commentators, ultimately leading to her exit. Now, with Evil Queen still in question and Disney's SnowWhite struggling to recover from its disastrous rollout, the battle for the fairy tale's legacy is more intense than ever. Will fans get the SnowWhite they've been asking for, or is this story destined for a Hollywood-sized twist?
Cooper has announced her exit from the Daily Wire. Listen, just from the very beginning, obviously everyone kind of knows the backstory. Last couple of weeks, there's just been some rumors floating around. Some people thought the rumors were ridiculous that she was leaving. Other people were saying that there was a lot of friction that was happening in the background at the Daily Wire. What we know for a fact is that BrettCooper did in fact announce her exit from the Daily Wire on Tuesday. While I was on a plane over to London, I had no Wi-Fi, so I landed and it was just an explosion of text messages. And, I think because the exit came after there were so many rumors floating, people then assumed that all of the rumors were true. There were rumors that her best friend or her maid of honor in her wedding, which is true, obviously, Reagan Conrad would be taking over her show. And people were trying to deduce whether or not that meant that there was a lot of drama in the background. The Spectator did a summary. They're obviously quite respected. And they went through and clawed through all of the internet innuendo and noticed some things. Obviously, one big thing that has been noticed on the internet is that Brett seems to have deleted all of the photos that she had of her and her maid of honor from her profile. So that obviously signals to people that maybe some of that innuendo was true. And then the other aspect, which I was not even aware of until I read this article on The Spectator, was that apparently there was some movement. This is such a Gen Z thing, but I guess they were commenting on all of Brett's posts or something and telling her to wear blue on her last day if she's not allowed to talk about what happened. And then she wore blue. So who knows if she wore blue because it's a normal color to wear and I wear blue probably twice a week, or if she was trying to signal something. Anyways, the long conclusion of this is, as far as separations go, it appears to be as amicable as it can be. She made the announcement. It was quite sad. She did seem like she was upset in it. And then it kind of cut to Jeremy Boring, the CEO. He said nice things about her. And unless she wants to contribute something else or he wants to contribute something else, I don't think there's any reason to look further into it because everybody is moving on in their lives. And that gets me to the next point. Everyone's like, what will happen to BrettCooper? BrettCooper is going to be absolutely fine. I mean, beyond fine. Frankly, by the time I hit the ground, I must have had, and I am not kidding, 25 messages from people from all walks of my life asking me, can I have a contact with BrettCooper? I'm talking about people that want to do her book, people that want to sign her for a show, people that want her to sign her for speeches. But the broader conversation that's going to be really interesting, and I think this is, again, it's broader, so it's not even specifically about Daily Wire, but people are kind of debating, if this is what the Daily Wire is doing, and it looks like it perhaps is. And if I'm speaking wrongly here, we're going to find out shortly, obviously. But if we are having this former or this maid of honor take over her show, is that going to work? And that is really interesting because, podcasting is a unique space. It is very personal. It's a new medium. When podcasting exploded, I mean, largely we can attribute that to Joe Rogan. Obviously, Daily Wire was one of the first companies to sort of try to carve out the space of podcasting and say, we're going to house a bunch of podcasters. I would say the Daily Wire and the Blaze kind of hit the ground running. And I think that nobody has really stopped to consider, can you just do that like late night TV? Can you do that like The View, where you can just keep swapping hosts and go, okay, well, now it's going to be the comment section with someone else. Is the audience going to like that? Or is the audience going to reject that? Now, if I'm just guessing, if this is my company and I'm running it, I'm going, no, I think podcasting is too personal. I think people sign up for a YouTube channel because they're signing up for that person. It remains to be seen. Obviously, they haven't done this yet. This will be an experiment for them. But I do think it starts a conversation about what it says about both Brett and the Daily Wire if they do it. Like, I think if I'm instructing what I would do, I would just create an entirely new show if you're going to bring in new talent. Otherwise, it kind of feels like, okay, well, is this just all scripted? Is that the real BrettCooper? Did she just train to do this show and that's not actually her personality? I'm asking these questions. I know the answer to this. Obviously, it is her personality. That is very much Brett's personality behind the scenes. This is how she talks. She's very bubbly and very excited. So I don't know if that's like the message that you want to send, that we can just like train someone else like a monkey to do the exact same thing rather than just create a whole new show around somebody else. Also, she's super young. She's got just a lot of gas left into the tank. She's going to be everywhere in 2025. So we just want to wish her a lot of luck.
Worse, Disney's attempts to salvage SnowWhite only fueled more skepticism. The abrupt shift in Zegler's tone felt calculated, and fans weren't fooled. Social media was flooded with side-by-side clips contrasting her earlier dismissive remarks, where she mocked the 1937 film as weird and outdated and called Prince Charming a stalker, with her newfound insistence that she had deep respect for the original. The backtracking was obvious, and instead of winning audiences back, it only intensified the backlash. Meanwhile, BrettCooper was facing drama of her own. The situation took a shocking turn when Reagan Conrad, her former producer and even her maid of honor, was revealed as her replacement on the comments section. Many saw this as a betrayal, and Cooper wasted no time erasing Conrad from her social media, unfollowing her and cutting ties with her former colleagues at the Daily Wire. The move sent a clear message: this was no amicable departure. With both SnowWhite adaptations caught in behind-the-scenes turmoil, the rivalry between Cooper and Zegler had become bigger than just their films. It was a battle of competing ideologies, fan loyalties, and Hollywood's ongoing struggle between nostalgia and reinvention. Now, as Disney scrambles to salvage its blockbuster and the Daily Wire navigates its own internal shakeups, one thing is certain: the SnowWhite showdown is far from over. To make matters worse, SnowWhite has reportedly been plagued by reshoots and internal struggles at Disney. Rumors have swirled that the studio is second-guessing its decision to cater to Zegler's vision of the story, fearing that the backlash could lead to yet another high-profile flop. Meanwhile, BrettCooper's SnowWhite has only gained momentum, with fans praising her as the actress who actually respects the character and the fairy tale's legacy. Now, the real question is, what happens next? Zegler's version is still set to release in 2025, but after a long delay and months of negative press, will audiences even care? On the other hand, Cooper's take is shaping up to be a major cultural moment, proving that audiences still crave timeless stories rather than politically driven rewrites. What began as controversy over one SnowWhite has now turned into a full-blown battle over the future of storytelling itself. And the biggest irony? The actress who is supposed to define the next generation of SnowWhite has found herself completely upstaged. Whether RachelZegler likes it or not, the real SnowWhite conversation is no longer about her. It's about BrettCooper.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing feat that people are able to accomplish in animation. So many talented people go into these movies and do the best work in the world, and I really do encourage everyone to sit through the credits. The credits of animated movies are long, but for good reason. The amount of people who just work in the shading department and the shadows, and it is an amazing accomplishment for so many people. The greatest challenge as an actor is that, you know, when you're working on screen or you're working on stage, and I was raised on stage, is that you get this instant gratification from the audience and this instant connection with your fellow actors, where in an animated movie you are alone in an ISO booth. And for me, I started in 2020 not knowing what a lot of these characters were going to look like, what things were going to sound like, the landscapes. I didn't really know, and I don't think neither did, you know, Skydance or Netflix. And so it was kind of really digging deep into that imagination that Elian has and that I had as a child and try to hold on to, and really following the guidance of Vicky Jensen, Jason Henkel, like everybody who worked on this movie. And they do such an incredible job. You're handing over a performance vocally to people who are going to give it a physicality. And that is really difficult. It feels like you're really letting go of something and putting your trust in a talented group of animators that have really done an incredible job on all.
Yes, and I have always said this, but I want to reiterate it, that I do not take for granted the fact that you guys take hours out of your busy lives to watch my videos, and I want to make sure that every single second of that time matters. I want to make sure that every single video I put out leaves you feeling more confident or empowered or smarter or more inquisitive about the world. And so because of that, we are going to be doing less frequent episodes. We're not going to be chasing the news cycle as much. I want to make sure that every single episode is intentional. This first season, in my eyes, is all about understanding where we've come from, where we're heading, and trying to fix the obvious disconnect between the generations, between values, and so much more. So I hope you are ready for even more hard truths, deeper dives than we have ever gone before, insightful interviews, and of course, lots of laughter and levity, because it would not be a BrettCooper production if we were not having fun through it all. But for this first episode of season 1 of the BrettCooper Show, I thought that we could just keep it simple and keep it between us. And I realize I just said keep it simple, but this episode kind of is not simple at all. It actually might get me into trouble, but we do need to talk about how the right runs the risk of literally losing everything that we've worked for if we continue down a path of mimicking the left's toxicity, aka
Snow White would be a strong, independent leader instead. Rather than honoring the beloved fairy tale, she seemed determined to rewrite it entirely, a move that alienated Disney's core audience. At first, Disney stood by Zegler, defending her vision for a modern Snow White. But as more of her comments surfaced, mocking the original film, rolling her eyes at its legacy, and dismissing the prince as a stalker, the backlash grew. Fans accused her of disrespecting the very character she was supposed to bring to life. What should have been a moment of triumph for Zegler quickly spiraled into a PR disaster. And then came BrettCooper. With no Hollywood background, no industry ties, and no attempt to redefine Snow White, Cooper became an unexpected contender in the fairy tale battle. The Daily Wire's Snow White and the Evil Queen promised to stay true to the classic story, featuring an actual prince, a traditional heroine, and the magic that made the original film timeless. Suddenly, Zegler's modernized take wasn't just controversial, it was being directly challenged by a rival adaptation that promised audiences exactly what they had been asking for. What started as a simple Disney remake has turned into something much bigger, a battle over the future of storytelling. And with Disney's Snow White facing delays, reshoots, and overwhelming negativity, one thing is becoming clear. RachelZegler may have been chosen as the next Snow White, but BrettCooper is the one audiences are rallying behind. Wire seized the moment, unveiling their own rival adaptation, Snow White and the Evil Queen. Unlike Disney's divisive reimagining, the Daily Wire's version promised to embrace the timeless fairy tale, complete with a classic heroine, an actual prince, and a story that respected its roots. For Disney executives, Zegler's Snow White may have seemed like a marketing goldmine, an opportunity to appeal to modern audiences with a strong, independent protagonist who rejected traditional romance. But for fans, it was a slap in the face. The backlash was immediate and relentless. Social media exploded with criticism, with longtime Disney loyalists, many of whom had defended previous live-action remakes, now voicing their frustration. The decision to replace the iconic Seven Dwarfs with CGI-rendered magical creatures only added fuel to the fire. Rather than addressing concerns or attempting to ease the backlash, Zegler doubled down. She mocked critics, dismissed their frustration, and insisted that her version of Snow White was superior. But then came the real problem. Her version was no longer the only one. With Disney's Snow White struggling under the weight of controversy, the Daily Wire saw an opportunity to provide an alternative. BrettCooper, an actress with no Hollywood background but a deep appreciation for classic storytelling, was cast in the leading role. Unlike Zegler, she wasn't trying to reinvent Snow White. She was simply bringing her to life as audiences remembered and loved her. Now the battle lines have been drawn. Disney's Snow White remains mired in negativity, reshoots, and delays, while Cooper's version has gained momentum among fans hungry for a faithful adaptation. The real question now isn't just which Snow White will succeed, but whether Disney's approach to storytelling is losing its magic altogether. When Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring announced a rival project, Snow White and the Evil Queen, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Unlike Disney's modernized take, this version promised to remain faithful to the brothers' Grimm fairy tale, preserving its themes of love, magic, and heroism. But the biggest surprise? The role of Snow White went to BrettCooper. Cooper, best known for her political commentary and the comment section show, was an unconventional choice. She wasn't a Hollywood actress, she didn't have years of experience on the big screen, and she wasn't part of the industry machine. But what she did have was something Disney's version was missing: deep respect for the original Snow White. I was raised on the original Grimm's fairy tales, so I'm thrilled that we're bringing this iconic story to life for the next generation, Cooper said. Snow White is such a beautiful character, and I'm honored to be playing her. Like all the best fairy tales, this is a story with timeless values like love, friendship, and kindness, and I can't wait to share them. Her words were everything Zegler's weren't. She wasn't mocking Snow White. She wasn't trying to rewrite the story. She was embracing it, and audiences noticed. While Zegler dismissed the original 1937 film as outdated and weird, Cooper spoke about its importance. While Disney was replacing classic characters and forcing a modernized message, the Daily Wire's Snow White was celebrating the timeless fairy tale for what it was. And as fans continued to reject Disney's version, Cooper's take only gained more traction.
The producer of the show has helped to write the show every single day, 2 episodes, and has been Brett's best friend. And so, some of the accusations against Reagan have been really ugly, like that she's impersonating Brett. Well, that's unfair. If Reagan seems a bit like Brett, it's because she's Brett's best friend and one of the writers and the producer of the show. She's worked as much on the show every day on what the show would look like and feel like and sound like as Brett has these last 2 years. They've done that together. Obviously, they have a lot in common in terms of their delivery because they have helped craft the show together. Some of the rumors I saw that we sent Reagan to acting lessons to make her more like Brett, that's absolutely absurd and deeply offensive. Reagan's enormously talented. She's been an enormous part of building the comment section for the last 2 years. And I've never sent her to an acting lesson. She's never asked me to send her to an acting lesson. I've never asked her to do anything to be more like Brett. If anything, we've told her make the show as much your own as you can while maintaining the format. But she is like Brett because they are friends and collaborators, have been collaborators on the show. It's actually ironic because I did send Brett to various kinds of lessons as a performer, not acting lessons. Brett's a terrific actress and always, the entire time I've known her, she has been, as will be evident when you see the Pendragon cycle.
It is not true that I am being forced out. It was my own choice to leave.
And they're circulating around letters internally that are saying like, oh, Brett Cooper wants to leave. And that is not the case at all, apparently, according to everyone at the Daily Wire that I've spoken to. And it's that she had disagreements with Jeremy Boring over what happened with Candace probably, and certainly more disagreements in terms of like the culture there and what's going on, and is now getting pushed out. And Jeremy just circulated a letter around the Daily Wire internally that obviously leaked. I have a copy of, I'm sure lots of people have a copy of. But in it, he clearly claims in it directly that Brett Cooper wanted to leave and that this is Brett Cooper's idea and they wish her well. And that is a flat out lie. That is like directly from sources that are very familiar with the matter. That is not the case.
We're sad to see Brett go, but we're excited to see her take the next step in her journey.
And Brett Cooper cannot say anything, and they're forcing her out while they try to play PR to make it look like, we're just trying to do it.
But at this point in my life, I am ready to take on a new direction, both personally and professionally. This means new challenges and new endeavors, which I will share with you soon. As for this show, the comment section will continue with the Daily Wire. My producer, Reagan, is taking over as host of the comment section, and I wish her and the Daily Wire all the best.
They are promoting her best friend, who was her maid of honor at her wedding. They offered her a contract that was so lucrative she couldn't refuse it.
The best friend that her bestie was already offered.
Producer Reagan.
Bridesmaid.
Yeah, her producer was her bridesmaid at her wedding this year.
Wow.
And gave her acting classes to help her imitate Brett's mannerisms. Reagan episodes are kind of weird because she's like a clone of Brett Cooper.
Oh my!
And it's because they paid for acting classes apparently for her to. And so there's this whole thing going on behind the scenes, and Brett can't say anything.
Are a sum of the people that you surround yourself with. If you don't like the way that they make you feel, if you don't like what they drive you to do, if you don't like their behaviors, then remove yourself. Choose to leave.
Almost immediately, Snow White and the Evil Queen started gaining traction, drawing in fans who had completely written off Disney's remake. Social media was flooded with comments praising Brett Cooper's version as the only one that respected the original fairy tale, while RachelZegler's take was slammed for mocking the beloved classic. As the backlash against Disney's Snow White intensified, Zegler, who had previously doubled down on her modernized vision, suddenly began backtracking, calling the 1937 film iconic and acknowledging its dedicated fanbase in an apparent attempt to win back audiences. But the damage was done, and fans weren't buying her sudden change in tone. Side-by-side comparisons of her earlier dismissive remarks versus her newfound praise for the animated classic went viral, exposing the inconsistency in her statements. Meanwhile, Cooper's film only continued to gain momentum, shifting the entire Snow White conversation away from Zegler and toward an actress who wasn't even part of Hollywood's elite. Now, as Disney struggles to salvage its embattled remake and Snow White and the Evil Queen grows in popularity, the real question is whether audiences will embrace a traditional fairy tale once again, or if Disney's hold on classic storytelling is beginning to slip away. 2025, but the damage may already be irreversible. Fans who had once been cautiously optimistic about the film had long since turned away, frustrated by Zegler's dismissive attitude and Disney's drastic changes to the beloved story. Now, with BrettCooper's Snow White and the Evil Queen gaining momentum, the contrast between the two films was impossible to ignore. One stayed true to the fairy tale's classic themes, while the other seemed more interested in rewriting them. Social media continued to erupt with criticism, calling out Zegler's sudden change of heart as nothing more than damage control, and even Disney appeared to recognize the growing problem. With rumors of reshoots and a release delay already swirling, the studio seemed to be scrambling to course-correct, knowing that Snow White needed to make over $300 million just to break even. But with audiences increasingly rejecting Disney's modernized approach and rallying behind Cooper's faithful adaptation instead, the real question remains, is Disney's Snow White doomed before it even hits theaters? With Snow White set to release in March 2025, the controversy surrounding the film shows no signs of fading, making the road ahead increasingly uncertain for Disney. Meanwhile, Snow White and the Evil Queen continues to gain traction, with audiences eager for a version that stays true to the fairy tale's origins. Zegler's attempts at damage control may have come too late, as her sudden reversal on Snow White has only fueled skepticism, further alienating audiences who once might have given the film a chance. With BrettCooper's adaptation drawing more attention, the conversation has shifted entirely, leaving Zegler struggling to reclaim her narrative. The real question now is whether audiences will embrace Disney's reimagined Snow White or reject it in favor of a faithful adaptation that respects the original story. And if Snow White and the Evil Queen surpasses expectations, what does that mean for the future of Hollywood's constant rewrites of beloved classics? One thing is clear, Zegler may have set out to redefine Snow White, but it's Cooper who has rewritten the conversation, proving that audiences still crave timeless stories over forced reinventions.